Hi there, Tony Potts here, and welcome to Pardon the Disruption, and thank you for watching, however you're watching, mobile, what have you, maybe half naked in bed, which for this episode would be actually apropos, because there's some rock involved. And even if you have some half-filled bottles of champagne strewn about and some articles of clothing, much the better. That's because today's disruptor, there are bands that you know now that are huge, that may not have been huge, ever made it without this, our guests. I'm saying this, and I think it's true. Billy Idol has said it, Duran Duran, OMD. At one time, one of the most, probably the biggest rock DJ in America on a station here in LA called KROQ. His ability to find talent, to recognize talent, promote them, and he's also an awesome guy, like a nice guy in the music business, which is unheard of. You can also hear him currently on Sirius Satellite XM Radio, Channel 33, which is First Wave. Welcome to the show, Richard Blade. Pleasure to have you.
How are you, buddy?
And you've written an autobiography called World in My Eyes.
Absolutely.
Which is a Duran Duran lyric or a song?
Yeah, Depeche Mode.
Oh, Depeche Mode,
yeah,
okay.
Actually,
Depeche
Martin
Mode.
Gore from Depeche Mode said, go ahead and use it. Because I was worried that he might want to use it for an autobiography.
So you got it in first.
Oh, yeah. No, but he said, no problem. Wrote me a nice blurb on the book.
So when I list off what you've done, which, by the way, is very small compared to what you've really done, do you ever take time, and I know that you're all energy and you're always doing the next thing, but do you ever take time to sit back and go, what kind of badass career I've had?
A couple of times when people talk to me at gigs, people always come up and go, hey, I grew up listening to you, thank you, or whatever. And it's always refreshing and incredible to hear that. But sometimes they'll list things that I've forgotten I've done.
Yeah.
And I go, wow. In the back of my mind, I go, wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because being a little kid in England, dreaming of coming to America and, doing radio and television, to actually have done it is quite something.
Well, yeah, and you did MTV as well, and you've been in movies and all of that, written the book, the autobiography. You have a new book, which we'll get to in a minute, which is pure fiction, which I'm very excited about. And by the way, for anybody who loves music, rock and roll, and wants to get behind the scenes, you should read Richard's book. It's a great read. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think it's still like in the top 20 and top 10 in a lot of lists, and it's 2 years ago.
Still top 5.
Yeah, top 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Who's counting? Look, top 5. I love this because you're a DJ. So it's always lists, right?
Hey, thank you, Casey Kasem.
Yeah, I love that. Talk about like coming from England and having that dream to be, in America, but also in music and what have you. Because some people, I know a lot of people, disruptors and people who do what they love, tell me they've never really worked a day in their life, although they've worked their ass off to get where they are. But this has been your passion since the get-go, and you're living and breathing your passion.
No, absolutely. What happened was after I left college, I was a college DJ in Oxford. And then I toured Europe for about 2 years working in the clubs, but I always wanted to get on the radio. That was a huge deal for me. And
was that disco times?
Oh, yeah. I was a big disco dick.
Yeah.
Back then, I wasn't Richard Blade. I was Dick Shepherd.
Disco Dick.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And I traveled around Europe, but I wanted to get into radio. But radio particularly in the UK, was very shut down at the time.
Yeah.
Pirate
structured
radio. Yeah, it was all run by the BBC.
Yeah.
And there was just a few commercial radio stations, Capital Radio in London. So America was the dream. I mean, there was 6,000 radio stations.
Yeah.
If you can make it there, that's where to go. And sunshine, blue skies, California girls was my goal. So I came over to
That's
LA.
the trifecta of trouble too, by the way, but yes.
And that's where I got the door slammed in my face. I remember the program director of KMET saying, you'll never work in this town with that accent.
Really?
And I was shut down by everyone, KISS FM, KMET, KLOS.
Did you going to college and being in Oxford, did it help your accent? Because if you'd had an accent from where you grew up, you probably would have been hard to hear, right? So you have actually a very audible accent.
Even in my hometown, I have a different accent to the rest of the people there because in Oxford, it kind of refined your accent a little.
Yeah.
And my hometown where I grew up, it's famous for 2 things. If you ask anyone in England about Torquay, which is where I grew up, they'll say 1 or 2 things. They'll say, oh, me mum and dad had their honeymoon there. Because it's kind of like the Laguna Beach of England.
All right.
And the other thing is they'll say, oh, didn't they shoot Faulty Towers there?
Ah, okay.
And that was what John Cleese did after
Yep.
Monty Python.
Yeah, huge show.
And that's set in Torquay. So it's kind of a little cosmopolitan, so it mixes up your accent.
How did you get past the rejections? After my second job in television, my goal was to be in New York on a TV show by the time I was 30. I was blessed enough to make it. But along the path, there was a time when I applied for, I don't know, 114 jobs and what have you. And I have 100 and some rejection letters. And some of them were like, you should try a different career. You'll never make it in television.
Right.
How did you overcome the door slam, the door slam, the door slam?
I had the same goal. I was going to be on the air doing a major shift in Los Angeles by the time I was 30.
Ugh.
That's what I said.
Yep.
And I always went back to working at this club in Basel in Switzerland. And someone had written on the wall, one of the DJs before me, because I was on a circuit of
Right,
DJs,
right. Oh, okay.
180 DJs kind of revolving through the clubs in Europe. And it was fantastic, great time.
Yeah.
And someone had written on the wall, radio, you can sing along with it, but you'll never be on it. And I kept looking at that over the month I was at this club, Happy Night in Basel. And I thought, what a depressing thing, because I'm going to be on it. And obviously this guy or girl had given up.
Right.
And so I wrote on the wall, did my own graffiti. I wrote underneath it, then one day you'll be singing along with me.
Nice.
Because I just kept coming back to that.
That's brilliant.
I'm not going to be that depressed guy or girl that's given up. I won't give up. And I just kept going and kept going and kept going until I won a contest on a rock station, which is no longer around anymore, and that's K-West. They were looking for Best Unknown DJ. And it gave me 1 hour on the air on prime time in LA. And
you had to be nervous.
Oh, God, yeah, it was terrifying.
Freaking
terrifying.
Did I take a shot of Jack or anything before? Or?
No, I'm not a drinker.
No,
but I had a great DJ to work with, J.J. Jackson, who went on to MTV.
Yes, he did.
He was fantastic to me, gave me complete free reign for the hour, recorded the show, even though my girlfriend at home was, had the cassette with play and record. And
remember those days.
Oh, my goodness.
God.
And he gave me what they call a skim tape, just my voice going in and out of the song.
Oh, okay, yeah.
K-West jingles. And I sent it out the next day to a bunch of stations in San Diego, San Luis Obispo, San Francisco, Bakersfield. And the day after, I get this phone call from the program director in Bakersfield saying, hey, will you come out? I think you've got a job waiting for you.
Nice.
And that was like, did it. So I went to Bakersfield for a year. I told them 12 months and I'm gone. I'm coming back to LA. And I got my experience, I got my ratings, came to LA, and
boom, rest is history.
That was it.
Billy Idol cites you as the one of the first people to believe in him.
Oh, love Billy.
Yeah, in the U.S. and really helped him establish himself here and what have you. How was it to play such a big role? And did you know at the time the power you had to either make or break an artist?
I knew the power the station had because K-Rock was mocked by the top 40 stations.
Of course.
We played groups like Wham, when Wham were considered disruptors. They're these white boys doing rap from England wearing leather. Right. And Rick Dees, great morning guy, but I mean, he was restricted by Kiss FM. He famously said, the day Kiss FM plays Wham is the day we turn off our transmitter. And of course, wake me up before you go, Careless Whisper. So, I was really instrumental in playing bands like Wham, and George Michael became a friend for life until he passed away. I mean, it was awful losing George. The same with Depeche Mode, same with Duran Duran.
Didn't you go on the road with Depeche Mode?
Yeah, and Spandau Ballet as well.
So tell me about that. Like, how does one go on the road with Depeche Mode?
Well, they called up. They
were on the road with Motley Crue once for about 5 gigs, and I had to get off before I went bananas and crazy.
It can be absolutely crazy, but Depeche would always have me be with them when they were kicking off a tour, so I could report back to LA because of K-Rock and because of me and people like Jet the Fish, etc. Depeche and Morrissey and the Smiths and New Order and The Cure were bigger in LA than anywhere else.
Right.
So what they would tend to do is they would wrap up their tour in LA with these huge gigs, but they'd have to kick it off in Florida or New York or Chicago. So they would fly me out to start off the tour with them and then report back to LA. This is what we're going to experience. And the tickets would not be yet on sale because they knew they would sell out. It's just a question of where do we play? Do we play at the Forum, Hollywood Bowl, or in Depeche Mode's case, they ended up playing the Rose Bowl, 80,000 people.
Yeah. which
So
is one of the
it was
iconic
crazy.
concerts of all time.
Of all time. You know,
Yeah.
Concert 101. It was fantastic.
It must have been a blast.
It was. I mean, Spandau flew me down to Australia to go on the road with them for a week. And that was just wild. I mean, unbelievably wild.
Because how? In what way?
One of my favorite memories was a huge bouncer coming up to me saying, "You're the American TV guy." And I went, "Well, I mean, he's too big to argue with." So I said, "Yeah, I'm the American TV guy." And he said, "There's someone at the door for you who knows you." So I didn't know anyone in Sydney. So I go there and there's this guy with a beanie on and dark glasses. And he goes, "Can I come in?" I went, "Oh my God, come on." He goes, "I didn't want to say anything because of the press outside. It wasn't paparazzi at the time. It was called press."
Yeah.
And so I bring him in and he said, "Thank you so
Who is
much."
it?
I'll tell you in 1 second. He goes, he said, "Thanks so much." He goes, "I'd heard about the parties." He goes, "What do you want to drink?" And I said, 4X, which is a Australian beer. He goes, "I'll get you one." He goes up to the bar and the two hottest girls in the club were there with barely wearing anything. And he walks in between the two of them and he goes to speak to them and they look at this dweeb with his beanie and his glasses and everything, and they're not there for him. They're there for Spandau.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, he slowed down time and brought out a wind machine because he just got his beanie and peeled it off, took his glasses off, as he did, he shook his head and his long hair flowed down. And these two girls went from "get the hell out of my face" to,
Oh my God.
"Oh my God, the hottest rock star in the world is standing here, Michael Hutchence from INXS."
That's awesome.
And he leaned in and he said something else to the girls, and he could have said anything.
Yeah.
He could have said, "Your mum is a whatever."
Yeah.
But they stood up, grabbed his hand, and he walked back to the door, and he stopped and he goes, "So sorry about the beer. I'll make it up to you." And he pulled back on his beanie, his glasses. He was dating Kylie at the time. So he didn't want it in the press. And left with these two hottest girls. Less than 3.5 minutes, Michael Hutchence had come in, done a U-turn and left. Next morning, we're getting up to do an interview on Channel 7 in Sydney, which is like the hottest channel, the morning show there. And as we're going out to the limo, the maitre d' calls me over and he goes, "Hey," or the bellboy or whatever it was, calls me over. He goes, "I've got a case of something for you." And there was a case, 24 bottles of 4X with a note from Michael saying, "Thanks for last night." And he'd had his guys send it over. But
that's a great story. 3.5 minutes total.
And he left
that's
with a
total
two
rock
hottest
star,
girl.
right? Yeah.
I mean, he was.
He didn't even do a lap.
No, he was just there.
Boom.
You two with me, and it was incredible.
Wow. You've had a million moments, but what's some of your most cherished moments? Not so much maybe backstage, but with one of like a Billy Idol or something, when you get to really know them and understand them and what have you. You know, you have a lot. I know you have a lot of those, but
I think again it was Spandau with Tony Hadley, from the lead singer of Spandau, and a guy called King from a band called King, and his name was Paul King, and they had a hit with "Love and Pride." We watched WrestleMania 1 at my house. I remember sitting there with Spandau and Paul King from King, and watching Hulk Hogan, who I just introduced at the Sports Arena in Los Angeles about 3 weeks before. He was fighting John the Stud. Yeah, Big John.
Yeah.
And the two of them were fighting. And then so to watch this with the guys from Spandau, with Paul King there, it was like weird. I'm like, this is my house in Canoga Park. Wasn't a fancy house or anything.
How did I get here?
We're watching WrestleMania 1, and it was wild.
I had a moment like that once. I was in Prague on the set of a movie, and I'm with there's Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale.
Oh.
And she's in this leather.
Yeah.
He's got long hair, and it's this medieval scene. It's muddy, and there's a little bit of snow falling. And I just had this moment of like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
He was like, "Hey, we should go out to dinner later tonight." Super nice guy, but I just like, how did I get here? This, $100 million movie. And those are the kind of moments I think I love, like in my career, of being around very creative people doing creative things in pretty amazing places.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's one of those like, how did I get here moments, right?
Yeah.
Those are the best.
Yeah, and then someone sent me these videos that all over my Facebook page that they'd recorded off, DirecTV or wherever.
Something,
Of Watch What Happens Live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Andy had Sarah Jessica Parker on, and he was playing a game with her, saying, "What do you remember of your career?"
Oh, okay.
And he had pictures of her with people that were blacked out, and then she would have to guess who the person was,
Oh,
and they would remove it. You know? And then so there was one with Oprah, and there was one with the Clintons, and then he said, "Who are you on the date with?" And she goes, "Richard Blade." And he takes it off, and it wasn't. It was, what's it from Footloose? Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, but I was like,
Richard Blade.
Wow, me and Sarah Jessica Parker. I mean,
did you go on a date?
Well, yeah, we did a couple of movies together.
Oh, okay.
We did Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Right.
Hi, I'm Gary Woods, and welcome to Dance TV. We have an incredible show for you tonight, so stay with us as we bring you one solid hour filled with your favorite hits.
Before that, when she was much younger, we'd done Square Pegs on CBS.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
She's awesome. I love her.
And she
super
lovely, lovely person.
Yeah.
I mean, and such a talent.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I remember watching her on Square Pegs when she was like 14 or 15. And I wanted to be an actor, and I watched her. Yeah. And I thought, I've got no chance, because she was just such a natural. And
yeah, when you see real talent, you're like, maybe I'll
so much to the camera.
Yeah. What? How do you keep reinventing yourself to a certain extent? I mean, you've written the great autobiography. You still tour a lot as a DJ. Oh, by the way, not too long ago, I saw something on YouTube that you did. There's a band that I always loved that basically imploded, which was Gene Loves Jezebel.
Right, absolutely.
The identical twin brothers.
Yeah, they pulled themselves apart.
Yeah, and sued each other and all that stuff. But you did an interview with them, and then after that rolled in something that was, and I think you were like an executive producer on, something like getting the band back together.
Yeah, Bands Reunited.
Bands Reunited, which was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did Berlin.
Yeah.
Which you're good friends with.
Oh, with Terry.
With Terry,
absolutely.
yeah.
We nearly got married.
Yeah. Oh,
that's all in the book.
That's right. I read. Yeah.
And in fact, Berlin was they tried to put Bands Reunited together for about a year on VH1. They'd had 2 failed pilots with smaller bands. And they brought me in and said, look, we've been trying to do it. We love the idea.
You're the guy. Like, you know all of them.
Can you do it? And I said, yeah. And so I said, give me about 3 or 4 days. We'll go over some potential groups. And I came back and I said, Berlin. And they went, no, you can't do Berlin. We can't have another failed pilot because Berlin's too good. We're saving them along with Frankie Goes to Hollywood and all that.
Yeah.
And I said, it won't fail. I promise it won't fail. And so we were 3 days into shooting it, and they were looking at the dailies, and they picked it up for the whole season.
Oh, perfect.
And they said, no, this is great. And so Berlin was actually the first one that...
they came on later, though. Like, they weren't the...
Yeah, we held it back. Yeah, but that was going to be the one to show them what could be done.
How much of crazy, raw, out-of-control stuff is not in the book? How much do you have to censor? People keep telling me to write a book of all I've done in Hollywood, and I could write 2 books. I could write one that would be holy moly, or I could write one that would be partially holy moly, but still relatively,
There's a lot of sex in the book. When I wrote it, I said to Krista, my wife, who you know well.
Yes.
I said, I got to be honest. And she said, that's fine. Everyone's got a history. And then when she read through it, she goes, God, you were such a man whore. But
then she said, by the way, I have this Michael Hutchins story of, and you're like, really, honey? No, I'm kidding.
But I left out a lot of sexual stories I knew about other people that I experienced.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to bring them down with me.
Right.
I was very honest about myself and what I'd done and people I'd hurt over the years unintentionally, and people who'd hurt me either intentionally or unintentionally. Through sex, and I'm very open in the autobiography, but I didn't want to get into other people's relationships that didn't affect me and just say, hey, guess what I saw so-and-so do.
Yeah, exactly. Just really smart. How did you stay out of the whole drugs and that whole thing that many bands and was it because you saw it all the time with people going downhill, or how did you manage to?
Yeah, in a way, and I worked so much. I loved to DJ live. So I was on the radio, and then I was doing my TV show, either MV3 or Video 1 or Video Beat. And then at night, I was DJing in the clubs. And my parents had raised me well. It wasn't like, you never do drugs. They were like, you're smarter than that.
Right.
You wouldn't do it. So I did cocaine twice in the 80s, 2 times.
2 times.
And both times, all it did was make me grind my teeth. And I was like, why would I spend so much money for something that's illegal and has screwed so many people up? And all it does is make me grind my teeth.
By the way, when you first do it, that's the best it's ever going to get, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, like any drug, the first time, a couple times you do it, that's the best ever, and then you're chasing it forever.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do it, so I stayed away from it. And pot didn't do anything for me it just made me sleepy. It didn't.
Pot made me really slow the next day.
Yeah,
and we're both kind of hyper dudes. And we're sitting on the couch one day, and I'm like, I remember I was thinking about getting a bowl of cereal, and like an hour later, I was still thinking about. I was like, what? I never had the bowl of cereal.
And alcohol, I was never a big drinker. One time in San Luis Obispo, when I was working in San Luis Obispo after Bakersfield for 6 months, I drank at a happy hour. Unfortunately, the club was close to where I was staying.
Yeah.
And I thought, I got to get home because I'm drunk. I better get home quick. And I sped home. And I got out my car. And I thought, what a stupid idiot I am. And I've never, ever got even close to it. So when I'm DJing live, I have one beer at the beginning of the night.
And boom.
And then the rest of the night, I drink water. That's all. Because I will not get into a car if I'm even close to it.
And that's where we met. You and I actually met at a Fix concert.
Oh, there you go.
Remember? Yeah.
Was it the Brixton or something?
Yeah,
like that?
and my wife saw you, and the thing that people should realize is, because it's not so much anymore, is that you were a huge part of people's lives in their teen years, and you kind of had the soundtrack to their teen years. And my wife remembered you. There were DJ awards between you and a guy called Steve West or somebody, I think. Somebody in San Diego.
In the listener's mind.
Yeah, in the listener's mind, And so she was always like, and she would love to, and she's like, we have to meet him. And so we went and met you, and the rest is history. Before we go, so you've written this new book.
Right.
And it's fiction.
Right.
Which is your first realm into that. Tell me about it real quick and how it came about.
Well, I'd written it as a screenplay in 2003. And I met with a lot of really big producers, people behind Gladiator, the people behind Predator and Die Hard, and the people behind Pirates of the Caribbean. It's called SPQR. It's a Latin phrase.
Okay.
It stands for the Senate and People of, even though it's a Q, of Rome.
Oh.
And it was on all the banners, and still, when you go to Italy, next time you're in Rome, look down, all the manhole covers, SPQR.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
run every morning in Rome, so I'll look down.
There you go. I often say it was the first thing you saw when the legions were approaching, and the last thing.
If you're still alive.
And it's the screenplay I wrote, and everyone loved it, but it was too expensive for them to do for what was an unproven writer at the time. So I thought, after the success of World in My Eyes, I didn't want to just put out the second half of my autobiography.
Right.
I wanted to take some time and write. So there's a couple of fiction that I wanted to write. This was the first one, a big action epic, based on facts, but with a twist. What would have happened if during an ill-fated invasion, which wiped out a legion at the time in this huge storm, what would have happened if one ship had made it through but been blown so far off course and ended up with the ship so damaged it could only go with the wind blowing west. And after 7 days of this hurricane and another 28 days of agony and distress, they get wrecked on what is now North Carolina's coast.
Oh my God.
And 42 Romans survived. And
that's an awesome premise.
Yeah, they're there with metal and swords and iron and the most elite fighters ever, because it's our hero's boat, the flagship, that survives. And they meet up with what are now Native Americans. So I had a friend who is an elder with the Mohawk tribe in Ottawa, who was a consultant on this, because you couldn't call them Native Americans, and you couldn't call them, because there was no America.
No.
And you couldn't call them Indians, because there was no relationship to India and West Indies.
Yeah, and that was a mislabel anyway when they got off the ship.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's like, what do you call them? And so it starts with barbarians and savages, but as they get to know them, they just become people.
Yeah.
And they interact, and these 42 Romans who've only known war suddenly discover a different way to live through these
peace meditation.
Yeah.
Oh, this is awesome.
But after a year and a half, when just as the Romans are getting ready to go back to Rome, they've built a boat, they've learned the seasons, they know which times the winds are blowing east and west and when to go. A terrible evil falls upon this peaceful tribe. And these 42 Romans have to say, do we go back to Rome,
or do we,
and to the crosses and the nails and the chains and the blood, or do we stay and fight for this peaceful tribe?
That's a great tease.
And the
You've done this before.
Yeah, the last third of the book, it's the biggest, most intense battle or series of
Battles
that you've ever read. And
Wow.
I mean, if it ever gets 69 on a screen,
It'll be awesome.
it will be the most. That's why I loved writing it, because I got to see it.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to read it, so it'll be.
You'll love it. You'll love it, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Always good seeing you,
Thank
man.
you. How do people find you?
Oh, you can find me on Facebook, Richard Blade page,
Yep.
Twitter @Richard Blade. My website is Richard Blade.
Just Google Richard
Yeah,
Blade.
just Google Richard Blade. It will come up.
It'll come up.
And you'll love SPQR. I promise. You will not put it down.
It is out now.
Yeah.
It'll be awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Pardon the disruption.